Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Soul Life. Today we have Natasha St. Michael. So you have a big background and a big experience online with all of your YouTube channels, but you also work as a certified health educator. You specialize in helping women make necessary diet and lifestyle changes. You're really helping to help them at the moment with skincare and helping with breakouts. I know that you've recovered from PCOS yourself, polycystic ovaries. I myself have too. So I've been watching your videos for years. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Saul. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's great to hear that you also recovered from polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah, it seems to be more prevalent in our family.
Mm.
But yeah, I really noticed it actually when I switched to a raw food lifestyle. I started to up my intake of fruit, and all of a sudden my ovaries, each time I would have like a binge on dates, my ovaries would really start to play up. And I noticed that you've said in, I think it was your video on hyperpigmentation, you said that your hyperpigmentation came out like when you upped your fruit as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. That was a pretty bad time actually having. Yeah, it was great to be on all the fruit, but my skin I had just these dark patches that came out of nowhere that I never had before. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what I love about your videos too, and just the way that you work with the audience, is that you really teach, but you also are a living example of everything that you've tried. Like you can see yourself as like the guinea pig, and you're really sorting out like what works for you. And I really gel with a lot of the information that you have, like on your coconut oil and things like that. I get breakouts from coconut oil too.
Oh, really?
Even if I have too much in my diet, I'll notice that my skin will break out. But yeah, it takes quite a long time to be able to find out those little tweaks and things that we have to make. And I think you're really good at other people not having to find it out through doing the self-experimentation.
Yeah.
You're really helping
Yes.
people to shortcut and find out.
And also, I think too, is that questioning a lot of the trends. Because I think a lot of times it's like something comes out and everyone's excited and everyone's promoting it and everyone's like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And it might not be.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is really like take an honest approach to it and be open and really, keep my eyes open, my senses open to experimenting with things and seeing what happens. Because it might not be good for everyone. It might not be good for anyone, or it might be great for everyone. And it's important to be able to sort of decipher sort of the marketing between the results you're getting and being open to that. Because I see it a lot in sort of my line of work that a lot of times people hear of certain remedies or certain foods or a diet, and they're told over and over again, this is what's going to solve your problem.
Yeah.
And they want it to work so badly. They try everything. And then there's sometimes even gurus that will tell people that they're doing things wrong, right? That they should get great results. And they're not. And they're told that they're making a mistake or they're not doing things properly. And it might just be that it's not good for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I love doing is the research, being the guinea pig, trying things out and sharing my results and being as transparent as possible. It's so important because we have that opportunity with the internet and being able to get and share as much information around the world to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think that's such an important factor too, is just being who you are. And I think that's what people see with your videos, is that you are you, and there's an honesty that comes with that. And I do love watching like the whole self-experimentation thing. It's really interesting watching someone go through a process and, finding the similarities that you've had. What do you find is working for you right now, like with your diet and lifestyle?
I would say in general, I find finding a good balance. I've over the years, that I've experimented with many kind of extreme diets and extreme lifestyles, like a raw food diet. I did an experimentation with paleo and low carb and high carb and everything.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I've come to realize that I do much better when I'm not putting rules on myself, right? Like the moment I start saying to myself, you can't have this and you can't do that, suddenly it's like I'm crazy and I want it.
Yeah.
And I've seen the downfall of it, is that it's like you want something so bad, you overeat it and you feel guilty and all of that. And I just find what works for me is being more intuitive with what my needs are. I think especially too is that over the past few years, I had my first baby.
Yeah.
So, I went through the pregnancy and then giving birth and nursing and all of that, I had to be flexible. And I had to really just lose the rules and start listening to my body and what it needs and what feels good and all of that. So in general, I would say what's working for me right now is that I always have to be mindful with the amount of carbohydrates in my diet, always, okay? And I think that's the history of polycystic ovarian syndrome, that I need to have carbohydrates every day, because if I don't, then I want it. So I do, and also because my husband is Balinese, right? He's Southeast Asian. So Asian diets are all about rice 3 times a day, rice and vegetables and a little bit of meat. I don't do particularly well eating a diet like that all the time. So I find a middle way with it where I do good having a very high vegetable or plant-based diet. Okay, I do great with vegetables. The more vegetables in my diet, the better I am. And then I would say for me, rice is the most neutral food. So I have rice, I would say almost every day. And usually that's my meal with my husband because he's eating that. And that's usually at the end of the day. But predominantly vegetables. I have meat, I have fish as well. I do eat fruit every day. But I would say morning and lunch, it's vegetables. Half of it might be raw by having like green juices every day and eating salads. I have a salad every single day, things like that. And then towards the evening, then I'm having more of an Asian meal that I prepare. Okay, so we'll have rice and I'll make like a homemade curry or vegetables with a bit of meat or something, things like that. So there's a good balance, because if I don't have some sort of grain every day, even just a small amount, I start feeling like I'm clawing at the walls. And then suddenly I want cookies and ice cream and things like that, right? Yeah. The sweet tooth comes out. So I find that having some sort of grain every day, a small amount of it, just kind of keeps me more in balance and it gives me energy. But I do best eating a lot of vegetables with small amounts of meat or fish and having fruit every day. Yeah. So that's it. It's what I've learned. It's like I need to take sort of the good out of all the different diet theories, all the things that I've tried. I've kind of dissected and pulled out what are the things that worked for me? What are the things I love to eat out of that diet? And then I continue with that and then look at all the other experiments I've done and pull out the stuff that's good. Yeah. And also think about too, like if anyone watching this right now, if you've done different diets, my recommendation is to look back at those diets and think about, what in that diet didn't work. What is it that brought you to that like upper limit of like breaking the diet or not feeling satisfied or feeling lousy, and to sort of dissect those diets or those things that you've tried to see, what are things that you want to continue doing and what are the things you don't want to ever do again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because it's easy to get so caught up in our heads in the information that's out there and everyone's saying, you need to eat this way if you're this, blood type or this way, for this type of body. It's just so confusing. And I've tried quite a few different things as well. Having studied natural medicine, we did like a lot of the blood type diets and that didn't work for me. I felt really heavy and sick, and also being a celiac with one of my daughters and I both have grain allergies. So like we can tolerate a little bit of grains, but not too much. Like we can't have, grains with more than one meal a day really before we start to notice it.
Yeah.
So with breakouts and things too, is there anything in particular? I know that you say dairy is a big one that people should avoid with breakouts. Is there any other foods that you notice really contribute to the breakouts?
I would say I would say 2 other things that are big ones is anything that is with high fructose corn syrup,
Yeah.
anything with sugar in it.
We
Okay,
shouldn't
and
be
normally
having
it's a
that.
high fructose corn syrup. It's a lot of times with people can get away sometimes with white sugar, you know, like a little, if they make like a homemade baked good or, you know, like that kind of stuff, not a problem. But it's that processed food with the high fructose corn syrups and other types of syrups too, like condensed milk syrups and all of that. That's just like, it's such bad news on people's skin. And I find too is any kind of sweet drink, because it's knocking people's blood sugar too quickly. Right? There's nothing that the body's breaking down. It's just this sugar hit. That, and I also have to say, is coffee. Okay, and I know people hate hearing this one, but the difference in people's skin when they cut out the coffee is it's phenomenal. And I know it's hard, and I know it's life-changing for people, but really, if you're dealing with acne, I would just strongly recommend cutting out the coffee. And in the beginning, if you can, at least cut out the creamer and the sugar in the coffee, and then slowly cut it out. And even I find by replacing it with like a green tea or any kind of herbal tea, even like a chai, even if it has caffeine in it, a caffeinated tea is much better on your body than coffee, because coffee is just it's acidic, it's leaching out minerals. And I find a lot of times, like if you've ever done the experiment of having coffee or having green tea, is that even though green tea has a lot of caffeine in it, it doesn't affect your adrenals the same way. You know, I find coffee is just like go, go, go. You're so amped up, like you're drinking like an energy drink. Whereas with green tea, it's like, it lifts you up, it opens up your eyes, but it's not making you, overstimulating you. And the whole thing is that when you've got acne or you got breakouts, it's that your body is being overstimulated. Okay, and so that's the whole thing is that you don't want to go in that direction of sort of amping up your body, because then it's gonna the oil production in your skin gets sort of brought up or stimulated, and everything's working too fast for your body to keep up with, and then suddenly your pores get clogged and there's all these issues. So whatever you do, you don't want to go in that direction. And that's why like the sugar also, it doesn't work for people's skin, because it's also overstimulating your body.
Is that more of like an Ayurvedic way of looking at things? Like to do with like the stimulation side?
Possibly. I mean, I don't, you know, it could be an Ayurvedic, it could also be Chinese medicine as well, of just not opening up those energy channels too much, you know.
It's going to crash somewhere, doesn't it, if we're upping all the time?
Exactly. And that's the whole thing with like drinking coffee, is that you can go years doing it, so you don't realize what it's actually doing until you get off of it. I know for myself, like I used to be so addicted to coffee, and when I would get off of it, it would take me like 2 weeks of like a migraine headache. I used to get awful back pains. Like I felt like it was the worst detox ever. And it would remind me, oh my goodness, just how bad coffee is, and just how addicted we are that we don't even realize it. And it's just a drink, right?
I find I go in waves. It depends on, like, if I'm on the road for work and things like that, or I'm doing conferences, then sometimes I might have a coffee if I've flown overseas, and it's to try not to get back into that addictive cycle of it. But I also like dandelion and chicory. I find that's got sort of that coffee type flavour. And we have an Australian native plant here called wattle, which is this beautiful yellow flower that has these little black seeds that are perfectly round. And you can make wattle seed coffee. It also makes a good skin scrub too. It's really
that
nice
sounds really nice.
Yeah. And the other thing sometimes that I'll do is even do like more of like a carob drink, or like a hot chocolate, even though the hot chocolate will still stimulate a bit. How do you find hot chocolate with the skin? Like if it's made with like more a plant-based milk?
Yes and no. So I actually find what's interesting is I actually find processed chocolate to be better for people's skin than cacao, like raw cacao. For some people have no problem with it, but some people, that's what's causing cystic acne. And it's the same thing because it's a stimulant, just like caffeine, right? It's got the theobromine in it, which is similar to caffeine. And the problem is with sort of the bean or the raw food is that it hasn't been processed down, so it's quite strong. But if you have something that's really been like a hot chocolate that's been a processed down roasted chocolate, it's better on the skin than a raw one. Okay, and this is not, this is not a blanket statement. Some people can get away eating raw chocolate every day, no problem. But if someone's really struggling with acne, especially cystic acne, and they've got the raw chocolate in their diet, I would take a break from it for 2 weeks to see how your skin goes. For me, that's between dairy and raw chocolate are the two worst things for my skin.
Yeah, I remember you saying about that. And how long do you find, like when you do change your diet, what's the time span before you sort of notice a difference? Just for people out there who are thinking maybe trying it for a day or two, like how many weeks would you recommend before seeing a difference?
Seeing a difference, I would say that you would start seeing improvements within 2 weeks. Okay, so it's not like you're going to wake up in 2 weeks and your skin is clear, but within 2 weeks, you will see, and sometimes your skin gets kind of worse before it gets better, but within 2 weeks, you will start to see, something's going on. I can see either my complexion is more balanced, my skin's looking better, there's hope. You can kind of see it within 2 weeks of like some sort of indication that you're in the right direction. And I can also say too is that some foods, like for me with the raw chocolate, I can get away with eating it once in a while, no problem. But the moment I have it 2 or 3 days in a row, I always wake up with like a big pimple on my face. At least once. Sometimes it's 3. So that's also good to know. Like I've done so many experiments and I've revisited so many foods, even dairy I've revisited many times to see what works, what doesn't. Because once you get to the other side where you completely clear up your skin, then you can do experiments where you reintroduce certain foods to see how you're reacting and how your skin's responding. So like for me, for example, like with the dairy, I can't have no milk or even yogurt I can't have, or cream, or no condensed milk, like ice cream, things like that are made with it. But I can eat cheese. And I don't eat very much cheese, but I don't get any breakouts from it. So for me, that's good to know. Like there's certain things I can get away with eating, but other things it's pretty bad.
And do you find that like depending on what's happening hormonally, like because you're a mum too, like I found with my 3 kids, like my diet would have to be different with each one, like depending on what my hormones were doing and what my skin could tolerate. Like everything just became so sensitive after I had the kids, and lots of pigmentation after each birth, like almost like a band-aid across my nose.
Oh, did you? So you got
luckily
the full...
it's faded a lot.
Wow. Yeah, I have one area right here I'm trying to fade.
I can't even see it.
No, luckily it's almost faded. It's almost gone. But I have to be very careful, especially living in Bali because the sun is so strong. I don't go out during the day, like pretty much. A little bit, maybe to get groceries if I didn't get it in the morning or in the evening. But in general, I don't like to be too much in the sun because the hyperpigmentation can darken within being out in like 20 minutes.
That's what I noticed too. Yeah. You know, if I've had to work outside for one day, because we do a lot of sky watching here with UFOs and things, and I'll come inside, I'm like, I had sunscreen on and everything, natural sunscreen, and it doesn't matter. So I'm usually under a scarf and a hat, hiding basically.
Fully, and I think that's an interesting thing too, like being here in Southeast Asia, where the sun is so strong, like the local people, they're fully clothed and it's hot. It's like 40 degrees here, right? And everyone is wearing pants and long sleeve t-shirts and jackets. And when they're on their motorbikes, they wear mitts. Like, it's no one wants to get their skin exposed to the sun because they don't want a tan. And it's interesting to see how here, where it's so hot, that they know that's how you protect your skin. It's like you've got to cover up. Yeah. Whereas in Australia or in Canada and in America, there's so much emphasis on sunscreen. Yeah. And sunscreen, it's going to help, but you really need to cover up. If you really want to protect your skin, you have to, avoid the strong sun, and you got to cover up because that is the only guarantee, you know. And that's what I see with like the hyperpigmentation, is that it's sunscreen will help, but it's really like if you're trying to fade it, you're trying to get rid of it, the less you're out there, especially between like 10 and 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's just, and where you are too in the world, you know, like even in Bali, like I used to, once in a while I'd go running on the beach first thing in the morning, and I'd get suntan or sunburn at
Wow.
like 7 a.m.
That's like Queensland up further north. It's like that.
Yes, exactly. I lived in Australia for almost 2 years.
Yeah. So
And
you know
yeah, up
exactly
in
what it's
Queensland.
like.
Yeah, like 7 a.m. You're just like, still the sun is that strong. So yeah, it's I can definitely agree with you that having, it's amazing what having a baby and the pregnancy and breastfeeding and all that, just how it affects your hormones. And me too, I had a lot of skin problems after I gave birth. When I was
Yeah.
pregnant, my skin was beautiful, it was great, but it was like the moment I gave birth, I had so many problems. And as you said, just that sensitivity, it was just, my skin would react to just like virtually like everything. It was just very hard.
Yeah. And what are your favorite products that you're using at the moment?
I would say my favorite products, my all-time favorite products are Living Libations. I love their products. And they're a Canadian brand. But I do know that I've heard that they're available in Australia.
Oh, okay.
And now that I'm in my 40s, and even when I was in so I would say starting my mid 30s, I did a lot better using oils. Whereas before that, before I turned 35, I was all about just wash your face with honey, don't put anything on your skin, just leave it as it is, and just let your skin breathe. Just let it be. And that worked for me for many years. And then suddenly when I got into my mid 30s, I started needing a little bit more.
Which
You know,
is
it's
right
just,
where I'm at now. I've just turned
okay.
36, so I'm right where you're
Yes.
talking about now.
Yeah. Yeah. Where you just kind of like, I can't really get away with just that.
No.
My skin's starting to feel a little bit tighter and drier, and it just needs more nourishment. And so that's when I made the switch to starting to use oils for oil cleansing, and also using like facial oils and serums and different natural products. And I think one thing we're really lucky is that nowadays there's so many things to choose from, and they're much higher quality. Like even just 5-10 years ago,
Yeah.
there wasn't much available, right? And I remember for years, like going to the health food store, and all of the sort of natural skincare products were just so heavy and waxy,
Yeah.
and like they wouldn't even move on your skin. You know, it's like you put them on and they wouldn't absorb. They're just awful. And and I think that's why I just went straight to using the honey, and that just worked for washing my face, and that was it. And but nowadays there's so many amazing skincare companies that are putting together beautiful blends and making beautiful stuff. So I feel like nowadays it's more like a playground. And I just know with my own sort of past and my background is that I always loved skincare products. I was always really
Yeah.
into the whole skincare ritual. And for me, growing up, that's what me and my best friend did, was that we used to
Yeah.
just hang out in the
Same.
bathroom and do like facials and buying products and going to the drugstore or the chemist and all of that. And so I think what sort of prompted me getting into creating the Clear Skin Essentials and building a blog and website and all that was that after I gave birth to my daughter, I kind of revisited that, where you know how it is when you have a baby, right? You don't have any time, right? It's
None.
like it's no longer you. There's no me. It's
You're
like
lucky
it's
if you
all
can
about the baby.
eat in that time.
Yeah. And so me time was gone, except for like 5 minutes when I'd go to use the washroom,
Yeah.
right? It was my excuse to be alone. And so that 5 minutes that I would have in the morning and the evening to like take a shower or just to brush my teeth was so sacred.
Yeah.
And it's a time to kind of reconnect with myself, and it built my self-esteem back up, because because when you have a baby, it's like your whole life changes overnight. There's a stress of being a good mother, trying to figure it out, like all of that. And sometimes that can really affect you, and especially the hormone changes and lack of sleep and not feeling yourself, and your body is all out of whack and all of that. And so I just found that for me, that those moments that I had in the bathroom by myself were just so precious.
That's the
And
piece. You get to lock
yeah,
yourself in there.
exactly. It's like that and you're given permission to be alone in the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
It's like someone will take the baby. It's your time. And so and and so it reconnected me to my childhood and to just that love of like trying things and just self-care itself. And so that's where the idea of the Kurska Essentials was kind of born, was that it's like, I would love to like sit around and write about taking care of your skin and write about nutrition and healing your skin and also about my experience trying different products and all of that, where I feel like when I'm writing, I'm talking to my best friend.
Yeah.
And it's a very female thing, it's and at this time in my life, I need that, that I'm, yeah, I don't know how we got into this conversation of moving the conversation and talking about how the website was born, but that's pretty much, yeah, my experience of how things changed after I gave birth to my daughter and kind of where my focus went.
And it's a good way to describe it as being born, because it is kind of like giving birth in a way, when you do make a website or a YouTube channel, which you've got a few of now. Did you want to tell the viewers about your other YouTube channels too?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
So, so I've been pretty much doing blogging and video blogging since 2009. So it's been many years now.
That's about
and
7 years, I think.
Yeah, 7 years. So my first website was Raw Radiant Health, and I created that mainly to sort of, I guess, to blog about my journey on the raw food diet. And so at that time, I'd been on the raw food diet for quite a while, and I was starting to coach people and work with people having more raw foods in their diet and in their lifestyle. And so I started that, and I focused on that website for, I would say, a good 2 years. And then what ended up happening was I developed a B12 deficiency while on the raw food diet. And so I had the choice. I could either get a bunch of injections of B12 for pretty much the rest of my life, or I can start eating animal products. Now, I was a vegetarian for most of my life. So since I was like 10 years old, I was a vegetarian, and a very strict one. And so this is like 25 years of being a vegetarian. And I started doing the injections, but I didn't feel good about it. And especially when I moved here to Bali, I mean, I don't even know what they're injecting me with, right? It's like I'm going to these clinics and they're like, yeah, we got the B12. And I'm kind of looking around like, I don't really know what you're giving me. I didn't feel good about it. And I didn't like the idea of I'm going to be injecting myself with something for the rest of my life.
Especially living such a natural lifestyle and, with your background for your study.
Well, that's it. It's kind of like I'm all into like natural health, but then I have to take like supplements to support that kind of lifestyle. It didn't resonate with me at all. And I was more willing to actually start eating animal meats and animal products to raise my B12 level. And also I felt terrible with my deficiency. It was affecting my nervous system. And even to this day, I have nerve problems in my fingers. Yeah, it burns my fingers. It's permanent damage.
Yeah.
And so, I needed to make a big change, and I decided to start eating meat again. And unfortunately, it didn't sit well with all my audience, right? Because everyone was into plant-based diet and veganism and vegetarianism, and suddenly I'm like, off the boat in eating meats, and so I didn't want to confuse people. I didn't know what quite to do. I was getting bullied by a lot of people as well. it was an uncomfortable situation. And so what I decided to do was start another website. And I thought if I could move over to another website where it's just more broad and helping people continue to be eating healthy, but not being stuck in raw food diet or any diet, but just really promoting a healthy lifestyle, and helping, especially I love to help beginners, like people that are trying to get off of Coca-Cola. Like I just love that, and also like working with advanced people that are, that have been doing it for years and they're still trying to figure out what's working, what's not. But I don't like to sort of be in one club. I like to I like to just be working with different people. And so I started Radiance Central, and that was a few years ago. And that's more broad. It's just on natural health, and then I'd say about a year ago I started the Clear Skin Essentials. And I think the reason why I moved on to starting yet another website was I just needed something that's more focused. I find that what I loved about Radiant Central was I was able to talk about all things healthy, but the problem was that when you kind of do too much, is that it's hard. You just feel like you're doing a lot of many things, but you're spreading yourself out too thin, And I just felt like if I can just focus on one thing and do it so well, and I think I have that personality too that's really like, I need to focus, then I can take people more from start to finish. That it's not this like, let's just hang out in the middle, but it's really like, let's start, let's deal with the acne, let's get rid of it. And I find it a lot more gratifying because I'm seeing people's journey. I'm part of it, and we're working together. And so, and I feel a lot more connected to the community as well, because it is about the journey. And as opposed to just being sort of like a jack of all trades, where it's like, I know a lot of stuff and I'm talking about a lot of stuff, but too much stuff. And so so that's why now I've started the Clear Skin Essentials, just to be more focused and really to put my expertise into something where I can see it grow, and really work with people. So, yeah.
And just from having a look at your channel and watching some of your videos, your new ones, you can really see how it can appeal to all different ages. Because I've got a teenager who's turning 16 a little bit later this year, but is going through a little bit of acne, and she won't listen to me about the dairy. I'm on her about dairy, just trying to cut it out. And I can see it getting worse because she's having more. It's like the more I say something, the more she'll have it. So I'm just having to step back from it. But I can see how, like, for girls that are looking for like real solutions of all different ages, that your channel would really help them. Do you find you have a certain age that really comes to you?
All ages, which is interesting. It's because when I started, I'm like, I need to be very, very specific, and I predominantly wanted to work more with women with adult acne, but I do get teenagers coming along. I even get men too that are signing up, even though I'm really like, it's for women. There's a lot of men that are, that are doing my courses, everything, and getting results, and I know they will, but I just felt, if I'm going to do this right, I really need to focus on like a specific group of people. And what I love is that, I really want to create a space where, because the problem with acne is that there's so much stuff for teenagers, right? It's if someone didn't have acne, they think it's a teenage problem, and it's not. It's also an adult problem. And even like a lot of skincare companies don't really understand this, that women that are going through menopause get acne. That it's not only someone in their teens or in their 20s. And so what I love is that I'm getting women that are going, that are perimenopausal and that are dealing with that too. So I would say the average age group that is watching the videos is anywhere from like 20 to like 55 or even older. So I really like that because I'm in the middle. I'm no longer a teenager. I'm no longer in my 20s, but I'm not old either. I've got a young spirit.
And so that you do.
Yeah, so, and I love working with younger people. So I'm happy where I'm positioned because I do like to talk about things like anti-aging as well. And I feel like there's not so much information out there, especially for people that have acne-prone skin,
Yeah.
because they're in this dilemma where they're like, I got breakouts, but I got wrinkles. What do I do? You know? And so I want to be sort of like that. I want to create a space where I can support people with that, you know, and present sort of options or products they can try that can be a solution, you know, that's taking care of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Your
that and so
your skin is amazing, by the way. You just have this
really,
glow, not just in spirit, but like it shines through your skin. You can
really
really
thank
see
you
that
so
you're like
much.
the living example of your work.
Yeah, yeah, and my skin wasn't like this, you know, it was the really like it was awful. And you know, like I tell people, like I had acne from polycystic ovarian syndrome, and when I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, it was in my mid 20s,
Mm.
and I was told there was no way I could even have children. I wasn't getting like a
My
period
sister
for
got told the
2 or 3
same.
years. Yeah, I was just
Mm.
told like, you know, sorry. And to be honest, what devastated me the most was the acne. I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I can live with the infertility. I can go and, you know, I ended up going traveling and being like, you know what? I'm free as a bird. You know, I might well have a family, so I'm not going to settle down. I'm going to go and do things. But I was like, I need to get rid of this acne because it was killing me. It was killing my self-esteem. It was just like, I just, I would do anything. I was like, I don't, you know, take my fertility, but just get rid of my skin problem, you know,
Yeah.
and I tried everything, you know, it was like every diet, every pill, every product, it was like, and and so yeah, it involved massive changes to my lifestyle and everything, but I am a living example
You
that
are.
it's totally possible to get rid of it. And it's just it's about being open,
Yeah.
because I think that a lot of the information that is out there, unfortunately, is garbage. You know, it's telling people to use really harsh products that are just burning their skin pretty
Yeah.
much. You know, it's and that's not how you're going to get rid of acne. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's an internal issue.
And even
And
in baby products too. It's just, people really need to get educated on what their products are made of. Go for
mm,
natural source products. Making sure that you're not going to have any parabens or silicons and sodium lauryl sulfates, things like that. People need to get used to reading and making sure they've got 100% naturally derived ingredients.
yes, exactly. And ingredients that work with their skin, you know,
Yeah,
because as we were saying before, it's like even something like coconut oil, which
yeah,
is totally natural, could be a disaster. You
mm,
know, so it's also it's being alert to what different things are doing, what's working, what's not, and to really put your own experience before
mm,
any information that you're getting. And that for me was, I think, what the big shift in healing my skin was, that I actually had a dermatologist that was honest enough to say, you know what, please stop putting anything on your skin.
yeah.
You know, and I'd seen so many dermatologists that I always leave with a big bag of like
Oh yeah.
samples and stuff, right? And it was the first time where I had like a doctor that was just like, I don't want you putting anything on it. And that's when my skin started to heal, was that someone stood up and said, you know what, I want you to do the opposite of what you're told.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, within a few weeks, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is the first time in like 10 or 15 years my skin actually looks okay,
Mm.
right? And it's from putting nothing on my skin. And so that's the thing too, is just it's being open to hearing what other people's experiences, hearing what other people have to say, and being open to maybe a different or alternative solution.
Mm. And I think if we look at it from a macrocosm level too, the skin really is a good reflection of what's going on internally. Like if we look at Chinese medicine and the mapping of the face with which organs relate to different areas of the body, I find if I get breakouts, it's around my chin or the chin line. It's more like the hormonal type,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that's good to kind of let me know what's going on in the body.
Yes,
Yeah. Do you
exactly.
find that helps with you too, to let you know
Yeah.
what's happening?
Yeah. And with my coaching clients, because I work with people to help them.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing photographs of their skin and them describing where they predominantly get breakouts. it's like I can tell them immediately.
Yeah.
And especially too, if I'm able to see photographs of someone's face with them describing their problem. Plus, I have all my coaching clients keep like a food journal for at least three to 5 days. If I'm able to see what someone's regular diet is, and then also what's going on with their skin, I can easily just tell them, okay, take this out, take that out, add this in, and it's almost like math. You know, it cannot be that obvious. And obviously there's also times where you have to dig a little bit deeper and try different experiments. But for most people, it can be that straightforward of just sort of looking at sort of face mapping or looking at what are common symptoms of an issue and how it would come up in your skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I just thought of then to share with you too, I found when I did, because I went raw vegan, I only did it for probably about 6 months.
Wow.
Full on, but high greens, low fruit. And that worked for me better than the high fruit.
Yes.
What I found to happen was I got so dehydrated, even though drinking lots of water, but it's like dermally, like really the depth of my skin changed, and I started to get more the crow's feet and fine lines. Did you find anything like that when you did the fully raw thing?
I would see in a lot of people. So I didn't have so much that issue. My skin actually looked really good with the raw.
Yeah.
But I would see it especially if people were doing like very low fat.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of it's like they're just it's like suddenly it's like their skin started thinning. You know, and
that's pretty much what happened to me. I was on a really low fat raw vegan diet.
Yeah, exactly. And and I think I was really lucky is that when I experimented with like the low fat, high fruit, raw vegan diet, I got the hyperpigmentation really quick. It was
that's a lucky lesson to learn from.
Yeah, it was. And especially because it was like all here. So I looked like I had like a mustache, you know, it was just dark. So so with that, luckily I kind of switched off of that and went more with more fats and all of that. But I would say the high fruit and the low fat, it will thin out your skin and it ages people. And you see it within sort of, you know, it's just too much sugar, you know, and interesting enough too, like on the opposite end of the spectrum, like when I've experimented with sort of a very low carb diet, like a paleo or with like a healthy Atkins kind of thing, you know, where it's like a lot of meat and a lot of greens, my skin was like, it was looking really good, really youthful, you know, it's like things are filling out, you know, as opposed to thinning out. And so on that end, I would see that, you know, it's really important to make sure, especially to have a lot of greens in the diet, so you kind of neutralize the animal stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're making sure to get the vitamins, you know, because when people do like a very high meat or high fish, like a paleo or something, if they're not eating enough greens or any fruit, they're missing out on the vitamins and the antioxidants, and they need that.
And the fiber.
Yeah, because that's bad news too. And I see that a lot, you know, it's people coming to me with really bad like cystic acne from paleo, and a lot of times it's just too much fat, too much protein, and not enough water in their diet, you know, so, and not enough like vitamins and antioxidants and things like that to neutralize all that protein, because too much protein can become acidic. But fats are really good for your skin and also good for your hormones. And so, and that too, like when people would do like the low fat raw vegan, some people ran into issues of major drops in their hormones. You know, it's just because there's not enough fat to help their body produce those hormones that they needed.
Yeah, it's really important, that fat for hormone production.
Yeah.
I also found that I actually started to glow. So my skin was clear on the raw vegan diet, just thinning out, but I was glowing like a luminescence kind of yellow. From all the beta carotene. Yeah.
And I would get the same thing, but it was almost to the extreme. There's something in I don't think I convert beta carotene so well. And so it would leak out of my skin. That's what a doctor told me, because I drink a lot of like green juice and have kale and stuff. And so I would be kind of orange.
Yeah, I was
Like,
probably
and
the same shade.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because when I was first on a raw vegan diet, I was working as an artist, and I worked making sculpture for a living for 10 years. And at that time, I was on a reality TV show, and they would come over and film, and my hands would have that orange glow, and
Yeah.
they filming me making my artwork, but it would be like fluorescent orange on the video. And the only way we can hide it was I used to have to wear like thick foundation
Oh,
on my
really?
hands. Yeah, it was that bad.
Wow.
It was only with the close-ups, and since they're filming me doing the artwork, they needed like these shots, and it was really embarrassing. It was just like to explain to them I'm drinking too much green juice that it's making me orange.
I think I must have had the same issue because it was on my hands too. It looked like fake tan.
Yeah, it's really bad, and it was just like, yeah, but you have like that healthy glow on the rest of
Yeah.
your body, but and so it's something with your liver is not converting the beta carotene properly, and so you're getting some of it, but a lot of it's coming out in your skin. And
Did you notice that with Luna Ray, your daughter? Because I noticed with two of mine, my two girls, their noses would go orange or yellow if they really got into lots of pumpkin or carrots. They'd have this little
really,
orange nose. Yeah.
really, no, I've never noticed that. Wow, I'll have to do a little experiment to see. Because she's got my coloring, so yeah, but unfortunately she's at this point she's a little bit rebellious with the vegetables these days.
Yeah.
It's not so easy.
Yeah, they tend to go through those stages. I've got
I
that a
know.
little bit with my youngest at the moment, who's 7. It's like
Okay,
a battle of the wills. He'll eventually eat it
exactly.
if we sit there long enough.
Yeah, but the only thing that's been working with me with her is I make her popsicles out of
Oh,
green juice, and that she loves. But anything else, like, it's just not happening. So yeah,
well, you're in the right climate for that anyway.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to ask you too, because you've got such gorgeous hair, do you
No.
find that your diet, when it was different, and throughout the different diets that you've tried, has your hair changed too?
Okay, my hair went through like massive changes over the years. I used to have really curly hair,
I remember.
and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and I think my hair was still curly when I was pregnant, but after I gave birth, my hair thinned out and it's gone kind of wavy. And the thinning out part I welcomed because I used to have really like just thick, curly, coarse hair. And suddenly it was like after I gave birth to my daughter, it got a little bit thinner and it got really nice and soft and so much more manageable. And I was like, wow, this is great. I'm really happy. So that's been good. But so I think that's more to do with the pregnancy and probably having to do with just change of sort of nutritional stores as well, is that since giving birth, I still feel like I'm working to build up my nutrition,
Yeah.
and so that too, it's like with the different diets, it affects your hair that way. And
Yeah.
again, it's like if you have a lot of healthy fats in your diet, the better your hair is going to be as well. I also find too, I've done in the past experiments with fish oil. And taking fish oil helps to really soften and strengthen hair. So that's the only thing. But personally, I'm not big into supplements.
Yeah.
It's like I tried it for a while and I was like, wow, there is a difference, but I don't want to take this for the rest of my life. But that does mean to start having more healthy fish in your diet, which is really good for the hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say not so good for the hair is having that like the low fat, high carb diet, not always so good.
So you do see some of the people that are on those diets where their hair really thins out.
Yeah.
And I noticed for me, like being a celiac too, when I was sort of like at that hormone age, like around 12, 13, my hair was thinning out in the front, which I think was linked to like the undiagnosed celiacs, which I didn't get diagnosed till I think 2009.
Wow.
So for me,
See,
like
many
food
years.
allergy plays a big part in hormones and the way that my body interacts with everything too. Have you noticed that with some of your clients, like clearing up food allergies has helped too?
Yeah, definitely. Because when you have a food allergy, you're not able to absorb the nutrition.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel that's why I was able to actually clear up like my acne and stuff, was that suddenly I went from like a fully processed food diet, and I used to smoke and like, drinking coffee 5 times a day,
I can't even
to
imagine
eating
that.
like, I mean, I was like the extreme of like unhealthy to the opposite extreme of like doing the raw foods and being like super healthy. I was flooding myself with nutrition. And and then I would see that in my skin, my hair, my nails, my even just like my mental health too, because I always struggled with depression, and it was like suddenly there was hope in my life, and I felt much better. And it's all about nutrition.
It
It's
is.
all about making sure that your body's getting what it needs. And when you have a food allergy, the problem with that is that it's either blocking you from absorbing the nutrients, or everything's passing through your body too quickly, you're not able to get it.
Yeah.
And then over time, if you have something like celiac, then you can really run into problems, because it's like, boom, one day you just, it's your body just doesn't have what it needs.
I was just talking about the link with allergies and depression yesterday, just with one of my clients, and also the link with eating a diet in gluten if you're sensitive, and the rates of schizophrenia and depression and bipolar seem to be a lot higher when you eliminate that and dairy out of the diet. A lot of the symptoms will drop. Did you find like with you, what sort of worked with you with your depression? Because there'll be a lot of people out there that are wanting to know what they can do sort of dietary wise, and not even realize that there can be a link between that and diet.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, like, again, the two worst things for depression and anxiety is, along with like the dairy and the gluten, but I would say really it's sugar and coffee. And coffee is kind of like a double-edged sword, because coffee is giving you that lift. And for a lot of people with depression, they rely on coffee to kind of get them out, it's like get them out of bed, get things going. But the problem with it is that it causes anxiety, because it's overstimulating you. And then the sugar, it's just too up and then down, up and down. And for me, I've dealt with severe depression my entire life. Since I was a little child, I had depression. And I only started feeling like I got a handle of it when I started eating healthy. And I'm sure it has to do with food allergies as well, because I have a sensitivity as well with gluten. It used to be quite severe, that I would have internal bleeding in my intestines from it. That was really, really bad. In my 20s, I would have to go to like the emergency room, and awful. And I spent many years off of gluten. And in recent years, I've been able to have a little bit. Like I don't like bread or anything. I used to love it. But then when you go through years of not having it, and then you have it again, you're just like, oh, this doesn't really taste very good. It's like
You taste the gluten in it. It tastes like
it just tastes like a cardboard. It's like I was like, what? Why was this so hard to get off of? It's really not that. It's tasteless. But and that's a good thing for people to know that struggle with the bread, is that if you spend enough time off of it and you have it again, it's not as great as you remembered it. And that could be because if you have an allergy to it, when you're eating it, it gives you a high.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like suddenly it's like when you take a break from it, you're no longer having sort of that histamine response. And so, especially if you go through years and years of it, like not having it, your body might not react to getting that high again when you do have it. And I think that's why people have a hard time getting off of gluten and also dairy as well, because if you have an allergy to it, it's going to give you a high every time you eat it. And so, so I would say definitely when it comes to sort of mood issues, it's staying away from the stimulants, staying away from the allergenic foods, all of that. It's like, and the more nutrition, more vegetables, more green vegetables you have in your diet, that to me is like natural, like Prozac, and exercise. Exercise is huge. And also giving a little bit of a push to go out and do things. Like, I know for myself, I tend to be kind of like reclusive, like I'm really like, I like to be by myself. But I find, and I know for a lot of depressed people, it's the same thing. It's like you need to recharge yourself by being on your own.
Yeah.
But I find that if you hit an upper limit of that, that you do need to be seeing people and having contact with people, and all of that is really, really important, and it's sometimes it's not thinking about it, it's just doing it, because that too, it feels better when you are around people. You can release energy that way and kind of get out of your mind, out of your thoughts, get a break from that.
Yeah. Well, everything you've said has just been really good advice. It's
Oh,
been
thank you.
fascinating interviewing you today. Thank you so much for being on the show. And
Thank you, my
I just wanted
pleasure.
to ask a final question.
Mhm.
Do you find, because I find this, when I get onto the green juice, that you can become addicted to the green juice? It's like you crave, like you wake up going, I need to have green.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Oh, cool.
Definitely. And I see like a difference in my skin, my health, my mental state when I'm not having it. It's like, and that's a good healthy addiction. I'd rather,
Yeah,
it's the same thing like exercise, right? It's like once you start getting into it regularly, when you can't go and exercise, you feel terrible.
yeah,
And it's just the thing with like the green juice, and I feel the same way with having a salad. For me, like a salad is really, really important. And I think especially for women that have polycystic ovarian syndrome or any kind of blood sugar disorder, the beauty of eating salads is that it's so low glycemic,
yeah,
and it just, you're getting a healthy dose of nutrition, and it's not affecting your blood sugar. If you put good yummy things in it, like nuts or seeds or a handful of like lentils or chickpeas or something in there, make it substantial.
mm,
It can be a really filling, nutritious meal. And I just find, like, out of everything out there, that's always like my staple, because it just ensures that I'm taking care of my nutritional needs, but it's also helping things move along in your body. It's keeping your digestion going well, all of that. And so I would say, like, for if someone were to say like what's a beauty food, or something that's going to make your skin bright and healthy and glowing, definitely salads and green juice.
yeah.
That's like the
I
top.
agree.
Yeah. And adding avocado in your salads,
A good
that's a
healthy
good one
fat.
too.
And it's
Yeah.
funny, your body starts to crave it.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think, if some of the viewers can just give it a try, even for a week, like their body starts to reset and start to crave those foods. We have to detox the old stuff out of the system.
Definitely. And you need to reset your taste buds,
Yeah,
because once you
definitely.
take like a little break from like the super sweet stuff and the processed food, you take a break from it for like a week or two, and then you taste something, you're just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I used to eat that. Like it
Yeah.
tastes weird. It tastes funny. It's not yummy anymore. You know what? Why was I so attached to it?
Yeah. And you'll
And
be able to
so,
look at it and not even crave it.
yeah. And the whole thing too is it's all about focusing on the benefits.
Mm.
It's getting excited, and like once you start eating healthy, looking in the mirror every day and seeing yourself transform.
Mm.
That's what's going to keep you going. And it's the first few days, it could be a little bit brutal, but it's worth it.
It is. I
Yeah.
guess it's like coming off anything that we're addicted to. It's hard to start with, but it's worth it in the long run.
Yes. And you
And
look back and you're just like, oh, thank goodness I did that.
yeah, yeah, it's good to be kind to yourself and sometimes to push yourself a bit too to benefit from the
Exactly.
results.
And also to see what the results can be.
Yeah,
Well, is that sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to get this far, but when you actually do it, you really get like massive results you weren't even expecting. And for me, that's what happened with, like, when I changed my diet to clear up adult acne, was that I wasn't even thinking about reversing polycystic ovarian syndrome. Like, I had already accepted I'm never going to have children, and I'm going to have, no period again for the rest of my life. I'm going to be hormonally imbalanced, but as long as I get rid of the acne, I'll be okay.
yeah,
And what ended up happening was I got rid of the acne, and then I had cysts that were covering all my ovaries that totally disappeared. I got my period back. I got my fertility back. I was able to have my daughter totally naturally and no
wow,
problem getting pregnant, like nothing. So I was only expecting to get rid of the acne, but in
yeah,
fact, I completely reverse every single symptom of polycystic ovarian syndrome.
And that's so good for people out there, because I know there's so much misinformation that comes from more the Western medicine side of things. I've got so many women that have come to me that have been diagnosed and told by the doctors that they can't have children, and often go on to like Eastern medicine and change their diet and are pregnant within no time at all.
Yes. And sometimes it's not massive changes either.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like losing 5 pounds or 10 pounds, and it's like everything starts falling into place. And that too is really encouraging to see, is that it's like even the small steps can yield like huge results.
Yeah. So where's the best place for people to find you?
I would say my website. You can come visit me at theclearSkinEssentialist.com. Also, oh, okay, perfect. And then also on Instagram, I've been posting regular little tips on clear skin over there, and that's also theclearSkinEssentials.com, and yeah, and then YouTube too, to see some of my videos.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
the
you
show.
so
I've
much.
just loved it.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, same. I could chat food and natural medicine all day with you. Thank you.
Thank you.